today is Laura Garcia, and she'll be with me very shortly. Each week, we explore topics and ideas related to the experience of people with conflict and look to promote the profession of conflict resolvers. We are available to connect with at fentonmediation@gmail.com and at 647-227-4734. Check out the Facebook page for Mediation Station and the group also to ask to become a member. Also visit YouTube channel Fenton Mediation to see videos of past shows. Listen to podcasts of Mediation Station on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Please follow us at our Twitter account, which is at Fenton Mediation. The conversation today is called Separation and Divorce, the Journey with Guilt, Regrets, and Forgiveness. And as I mentioned, Laura will be having the stage to present herself in the conversation. And joining us for the conversation is Dana Vladescu, and she'll be with us shortly. The program is live each Sunday night from 8 to 9 p.m. through Zoom. We will engage in conversation with everyone attending, able to listen and watch the conversation. Microphones and webcams will be closed, and if anyone wants to contribute anything, there are two options. One is to see the chat icon as a bubble located at the bottom center of your screen for you to click to then type in a comment or question and then click to send. Or you can click on the reactions icon also located at the bottom center of your screen for us to see. Within that, you'll click on the hand icon and we'll notice that. We'll open up your mic for you to speak, to share your comment or question, and then we'll close your microphone again. The show is being recorded for both video and audio purposes. That will be uploaded afterwards, after editing, for public access on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So check those out, please. Let me do my little public service announcement. There is another option available for individuals looking to become accredited as a family mediator in Ontario. Ontario Association for Family Mediation, OAFM, is now providing that 80 of the 100 hours of practicum experience can be completed using simulated cases. The final 20 hours of the practicum must be completed with real clients. Family Mediation Practicum Ontario is providing, through its OAFM approved course, this experience starting this fall, 2021, by using realistic case scenarios with the 80 hours counting towards accreditation. All cases are online with real-time feedback. For more information, please check out the web page, familymediationpracticum.pccs.ca. So today we're going to have a conversation titled Separation and Divorce, the Journey with Guilt, Regrets, and Forgiveness. And with me to start off is Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Just excited that, for the once a month, well, you know what, I missed a couple of months, I think, right?
Yeah, you did.
So I'm finally in front of the camera, which is exciting. Let's call it exciting. Let's stick with that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Tell me, how's your garden growing?
Oh, you know what? It's growing amazingly. I only have 2 cucumbers, but the zucchinis are in love this year. Last year, I didn't have any zucchinis. So now, and the hot peppers are starting.
Oh, that's your...
We're going to be the new Tabasco garden here.
You're into the hot stuff for sure, right?
Yeah, I look forward to that. That's towards the end of the summer. So we'll make some hot sauce and, keep it for the winter too.
Maybe you'll get some more cucumbers too.
I can take it or leave it.
Are they the bush size, the little things?
The pickling ones, I think they're called here. I don't know. We just call, in Romania, we just call them cucumbers. Whatever shape, size they come up. We only have one word here. There's no adjective in front of a cucumber, but here it seems like there's lots of it. There's English cucumber, pickling cucumber. I don't know. There's all sorts of sorts of cucumbers.
Well, you can show us at a later date.
That's
whatever
okay.
you do. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I really want to see it, please.
Yeah, I'd rather not. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Hi,
Okay.
hi, Dana. How you doing?
Hello, good evening.
How are you feeling? How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's nice to see you and nice to see Laura.
Oh,
Laura, did you hear that?
I did. That's a first. I have to say, whenever I'm in front of the Zoom in meetings, very rarely we have people who are excited to see us, or excited to see us anyway.
Well, this is a
Well,
friendly conversation.
exactly, and I haven't seen you in a long time, so
What, like a
There we
week or
go.
something?
like a week, maybe a few weeks.
Okay. So what are you looking to do from our conversation today, Dana? What do you see
Well,
as the big picture here?
I'm hoping to have a fulsome conversation with both Laura and you. The title of this conversation includes the word journey, and for me, with my experience and my work, I see separation, the process of separation, as a journey. When I work with people, and I'll tell you more about my background later, if needed. But when I talk to people, when I work with people, when I converse with friends, when we look at separation, I make the analogy of separation being like going on a trip around the world. You don't know what you are going to encounter. And this is what I'm hoping to see tonight, that we look at this journey as exciting, unpredictable, heartbreaking, challenging.
And when you use the word trip, I have a sense that, like, usually people, when they take trips, it's because they want to take trips. I'm not sure, though, in the separation divorce journey, that kind of trip is always what somebody wants. We'll talk more about that.
Yes.
Let's present, what is your professional background?
I'm a trained social worker. I have a master's degree in social work. I've been practicing in mental health field mainly for almost 20 years. I worked with all populations, children, young, old. I have been doing counseling, therapeutic counseling, coaching. I've been running groups. And lately, in the last few years, 4 years ago to be exact, I decided to do my master in law in alternative dispute resolution. And that was the time when I met Laura. This is why I say it's nice to see you, Laura.
What was actually taking the master's like for you?
It was something that I always wanted to do it. I postponed it for many years. I was pleased to see that in a Master of Law, there's a big focus on emotions, because my work is working with emotions. It was a great experience. I met amazing people I'm still in contact with. And yeah, it was a great experience. I'm not doing mediation right now. But
okay.
But I'm using what I learned, and I have a great.
So I remember meeting Dana.
Yeah, you remember that, eh?
Yes, I remember meeting Dana. So I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to meet. So first of all, it was a very small group, and in this program, and there's no way, there's no way I would have thought that I'm gonna meet someone else from Romania. chances are very slim when unless you're an engineer. So if you're going to engineering, then pretty much you know that at least 50 to 70% of that class is going to be Romanian.
Look, are you stereotyping people?
Am I?
Yeah, that's a question.
Just the Romanian people. Does that still
Okay.
does that still count?
Well, it's however you want to make sense of it.
I remember entering the class and there is a signing sheet. So I took and I never look at names because names are names, and you know, names are very different than what a person is and all that stuff. So all of a sudden though, I think I had to sign right underneath hers, and it was Dana Vladescu, which is a very Romanian name, especially the end of the last name. So Escu is a very common last name in Romania, so they end in there. So I said to myself, here's my last chance to curse in Romanian. So I was like, I was so upset because I was thinking, you know what, if I am upset, if I'm frustrated, then at least I have my own secret little language that I can kind of like, so that was that. And then when I met Dana, then I realized that I can be free to be whomever I felt at whatever moment I was. So I never let go of Dana.
You become a kindred spirit of some form, like a sisterhood.
Yeah, pretty
Yes.
much.
Pretty much, yes.
So you guys you did the course, the whole program online, is that right?
No, in
No, no.
person.
You were there in person? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is basically before COVID.
Yeah, we finished the program in 2019.
Okay.
So yes, we were lucky. We were able to be there in person and experience everything and engage in different exercises. It was wonderful, and meet wonderful people again, like Laura.
Okay. Let's not push it now.
So, you know, for you, Donna,
Yes.
who or what have been the influences in your life?
Well, I'm gonna change the question because
Wow, just exercising your own voice here. Wow.
yes, I do. I'm a free spirit and I'm a rebel, so I am not easily influenced, and I like to use the word inspired.
Okay.
And for me, language is very important in my work because, and I'll tell you why I'm going to use the word inspired. I am inspired, and I have been inspired by my clients because every time I work with someone, they might come in with the same presenting issue. Let's say they're going through separation. Their journey, their experiences, how they got there, how they want to navigate this journey is different. So I learn from them. I learn what works for them. I learn from their strength and resiliency. So people inspire me. I don't have a particular person that I look up to. I have two people that I keep in my heart. Both of them are deceased. And I think of them every day. One is someone that I never met. He was 17 when he passed away, and he risked his life. I mean, he lost his life for my freedom. The other one is my father, and he taught me unconditional love. He taught me to how to listen, how not to assume. So those are the two people that, if you wanna look at it, that they influence. They don't influence me, but they influence what I do. and how I basically live my life. And I know that's very personal, and I don't know if
No, that's totally
that was
fine.
too much.
No, you know, I've been doing this program for over 16 years, and it is intentionally to go below the waterline, you know, using the symbolism of an iceberg. I'm not interested on staying on the surface with that, going deeper to pull out the information of what actually is the person about, what's the situation about. And so what you've just shared is totally in line, fundamental to the intention and purpose here. You know, it's not about regurgitating the same old stuff.
Yeah, and I do believe in being authentic, and this is what you get. you are not getting the on the surface person. Let's go in and look at what's going on, people. This is how I work. This is how I live my life.
And you know, I'll speak for myself and not Laura. I totally appreciate that, and I respect that, and actually encourage that.
Thank you.
I think it takes a lot to be authentic, because when you said authentic, I actually thought of the ability to be vulnerable, and the ability to be okay with being with presenting with showing your vulnerability, which is a very, very difficult and challenging task for or journey for many. So I do connect the two, and I actually did not connect them until you said it, because you said it right after you have shared something very personal. So the two of them are now very connected in my mind, and it makes sense that authenticity does come with being comfortable with vulnerability. So I just
which in a way is like
place that.
It's like opposites, because it's about being comfortable with discomfort.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
A vulnerability to me represents a space of unknown, a journey of unknown. Mm-hmm. And to intentionally go into that journey or that space is to put yourself somewhat at risk. And you don't know how the journey will come out and how it will transpire, what the outcomes will be from it. I think the intention, though, is to go into it to reward yourself with the experience that can then contribute to your own growth and development.
Yeah, and let people see who you are. Like we don't have control over how people are going to react or how they are going to receive the information or who we are or what we bring to the table. The only thing we have control over is how we behave. How do we present ourselves? So in my situation, I choose to be authentic. What you see is what you get. And Laura can tell you that. She experienced that. And again, you are correct. There is an understanding and an agreement within yourself that I'm going to be vulnerable. I am exposing myself, so to speak, to criticism, judgment, and also praise and inspiration to other people to do the same thing and build trust.
I appreciate that a lot, because sometimes, to be in all honesty, sometimes I'm not sure, especially in today's world, who is being authentic. And saying that one is authentic is one thing, and then actually leading and the actions and the behavior responses align with that. I think that is the overall substance, but I find it very difficult, because especially with social media and all that stuff that's happening, everybody seems to say that they know themselves, they understand, they reflect, they are vulnerable, but it's just I'm not sure why, it just feels very fake. I feel like we are in a very fake world, and even on I'm not sure whether they also feel a particular way. Some people, with social media, they they present as authentic, however, they turn around and do completely something different. So they say one thing and they do a completely different thing. So I like to see both. I like to see actions for me speak louder. And just because I know you, I know that you are true to yourself, which I know Greg and I have been speaking at length ever since we met about staying and being true to yourself, to oneself. And you know, there's lots of challenges. It's a journey with tons and tons of obstacles to remain true to yourself. But I don't want to digress from our tonight's topic. So I do wanted to ask, so why do you want to speak about you know, the separation and divorce topic tonight?
Well,
Not because I forced you.
no, you didn't, but it started as a joke. Okay, so I was listening to Greg's show, and I've been listening to the show, Greg, for a while. And there was a show when the topic was around, I believe, forgiveness, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Laura and I got into a conversation about forgiveness and what forgiveness is, and I have a bit of a different view around the necessity of forgiving, or the need to forgive, or forgiveness being mandatory for someone to move on. And I said to her, maybe I should come on the show and talk about this. It was a joke, by the way. And I guess the joke is on me now.
It is on you.
Absolutely. Now you have to,
Yeah.
you got to talk now. You got to walk your talk, or talk your walk, whatever it is.
Or both. Yeah, so this is why. So that it started with that, and then in my work. So as I mentioned, I've been doing counseling, therapeutic counseling for many years, and one of the reasons people come to see me is because they are going through separation, or they are contemplating separation. And it's my work is mainly on life transitions. I've been doing most of my work with life transitions, and separation, or the breakup of a relationship, it's a life transition. So I'm very interested in the topic. I also believe that there is a misconception on what is okay to feel and not okay to feel when you are going through separation. I'll give you an example so you understand where I'm coming from. So I have clients that have come to me and said to me, you know, I noticed my neighbor or my sister going through this, and they were very upset, and they were experiencing this kind of emotions. But I feel relieved, or I'm happy. You know, I'm happy I did it. It must be something wrong with me because I don't feel the sadness, or I don't feel a particular kind of emotion I see people around me experiencing. So what I want to bring to this conversation is that the journey of separation, it's personal. We all experience different emotions. There are no emotions that are mandatory. I don't like to use extremes like right or wrong, and I don't like labels, because a lot of things we do in this society, it's about polarizing. We are polarizing emotions to good and bad, right and wrong. And then we forget about the in-between. And this is why I made the reference to the trip, Greg. Not because some people prepare to take the trip of separation. Others are pushed into it or blindsided, and they're faced with that. And I'm sorry, I'm going to use very direct words because this is who I am. Some people have the time, the energy to do a little bit of preparation. The reality is separation, the journey of separation doesn't come with a manual. Yes, we can educate. We can prepare for a trip. Like you can do your homework, but when you get to your first point of your trip, things might be different. Some of us like to come home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and tell their families that, oh, I'm going to Greece tomorrow. Oh, do you have a plan? No, I don't have a plan. Do you have a place to stay? No, I don't have a place to stay. Do you know what you're going to do there? No, I don't know what I'm going to do there. But what I know is that I'm going to go with these people. Same with separation. Sometimes we just have to have the right people around us.
Which is fundamental and key. And I see, that's their own way. And so welcome to the program. That's fundamental here. The celebration of individuality, self-determination, self-empowerment, totally. So when separation actually occurs, whatever that looks like, there is a tendency for it to be a response to a situation and relationship for one of the partners and a reaction. This is how I'm framing it. A reaction for the other partner as a result of the first person's response or action. So someone has an intention, they take that first step, and the other person is injected into that as a consequence. Many separations happen with one person making a conscious decision to decide to separate. Looking at both of the partners' perspectives, what is your perspective about the emotional effect upon each person when they end up separating? So the one who's made that conscious and the other one who's on the receiving end of it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I'll tell you what my observation is from, working with probably hundreds of people. So you are correct, Greg. Usually there is one person that initiates the separation, the actual separation, or brings it forward to their partner. That person probably has had some time to think about it. They are at an emotional level where they are somewhat prepared. I don't want to say they are prepared because we might think we are prepared for things, but we don't know how we are going to react when that moment comes. So they might be they might be at the stage of acceptance. Okay, I accept that this relationship no longer works for me. The recipient of the news, unless they had an idea or the conversation happened along the way that this is not working, let's see how we can work through this, or we might have to consider separation. In my experience, the reaction is shock, denial, or anger. And there are many other emotions that the recipient might experience, but I'm just talking about the most common emotions that people relate to me.
So that's the person on the receiving end. What about the person who's made that intentional, conscious decision to separate? What's your experience with their emotional state?
Well, I think, so this is what I heard again. the person that initiates or it's ready to separate, they they might feel guilty about that. Many people feel guilty. Okay, they might be sad. They might feel relieved because it's happening. Usually, one of the questions I ask my clients, and I see both couples and individuals, and I ask them, when did you notice your separation started? And we talk about separation has different elements. There is the emotional, there is the physical, just to mention two. So before people separate physically, they usually separate emotionally. And what I mean by that, people disconnect. People disconnect before, and there is research that supports my experience with my clients. It's about 3 to 5 years. People start disconnecting emotionally from each other.
The detachment.
Yeah, the detachment or disconnect, whatever you want to call it. But you notice that they are spending less time together, like they spend more time at work, they engage in different activities. They might, the only time they might be together is when they take the kids to some activities, play sports. And I can tell you right now with COVID, we've seen an increase in separation.
I would
this
even,
is what I be.
When you presented about, about when did this or this happen with regard to separation, when did you identify that point in time? I would even look to ask, and maybe you do this, ask each, what is your perspective with what separation is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And usually we talk about that. And like what's your understanding? If it's the couple, we talk about how are you planning to do it? Usually I see individuals that tell me I'm thinking or I'm gonna go ahead.
So how do you, Dana, how do you see the transition that happens when separation has been identified and implemented in some way, and then it transitions toward divorce? What happens in that transition?
Well, I think there are a number of things that are happening. Again, the process is different for each individual and couple. If the couple can work it out together with or without help from, it doesn't have to be a professional. In my experience, I coach people on how to do it by themselves, or sometimes they bring in a friend or a family member. It's this individual, this family member has to be very neutral. Okay, it cannot be someone that sides with one of the parties, because that's not going to work.
You mean it's when you conduct a joint session with the
Yeah.
couple?
Yeah, I do couples counseling. Okay, I
Right.
don't do mediation. Okay, the actual mediation that Laura does.
Mm-hmm.
I do talk about mediation, and I offer mediation as an option for the couple to have someone to go through the process and learn about their rights and involve how to look at custody and access and all of these things. I don't do this formally, so I look at separation more from like an emotional and problem solving. So it's like, okay, what do you need to have in place to be able to engage into this journey? I do talk about how are you going to handle finances? So what a mediator does with a purpose, I do it as a counselor. But I also did marriage prep, so I talk about everything.
I will say, though, that there are mediators such as myself who do things from a broader perspective of relationships. And it's about having those conversations. What's going on for you now? What would you like to see happen? How do you see trying to create that to happen? Those kinds of things, which are very open-ended questions and don't have concrete, specific definitions to. And it's left for the individuals who's asked those questions to identify for themselves and make their own determination.
Yeah, and that's the idea here. Like, how are you going to co-parent? You have two children. Like, you are going to separate and go separate ways with each other, but you will continue to be parents. How you don't put your kids in the middle.
Ideally.
But in counseling, we talk about that. We talk about the impact of putting the kids in the middle.
Well, that is the most important thing, and please forgive me with my back and forth of the connection. I'm hoping it's a little bit better now, and I heard most of it, so I'm sorry. I kind of want to go back a little bit because the initial and what I'm seeing anyway from my initial calls or speaking with families and couples who are going through separation or contemplating separation. I have, for example, a lady who calls me once a year. I'll give you an example. For the past 5 years. For the past 5 years, she calls me once a year. And she says, I'm trapped in the relationship, in my marriage. I don't know how to tell him that I want to separate. Every single time I bring myself to tell him, he either falls ill or he loses his job and so forth and so on. What I'm trying to get to is that sometimes we see the initiator as the person who we thought maybe they just decided, they made a rash decision, and they came up with this step on their own, and it didn't take that much time. But there's a lot of time that some have been feeling trapped in a relationship. And they didn't find their ways to connect in words, at least, with the other person to tell them that they're ready, they need to separate. And on the other side of the coin, we hear the husband who has no idea, in this example, who had no idea about the turmoil that this person, his wife, has been going through within herself for the past 5 years. And our call is about an hour long every time. She's always surprised that I remember her, but of course I remember her. And it's never about leave. It's about questioning what keeps you there, right? So there's a lot of internal monologue, a lot of internal sort of convincing of self that she has to stay because he's ill, because he lost his job, because their son is finishing high school. And what I find oftentimes is that the person who is initiated or has felt this challenge, is this guilt, lots of times, actually, I don't know if it's guilt, it's probably something related to guilt anyway. They suffer greatly, they become ill themselves. So their well-being is at risk if they don't take a step. And I don't know, see, in that respect, they would need some therapeutic support. They would need some coaching. They would need someone that, even though if they come to mediation, then that would be probably their first step in bringing the other person. But what do you do with a person who is like her, trapped in this relationship and not ready, not feeling guilty of saying something to the husband because of all the things that the husband is experiencing, forgetting herself completely? and you know, denying herself any opportunity to start you know, a journey of her own without all of this immense guilt on her. So I'm not sure. I wanted to relate back to that guilt. So I'll leave it
Yeah.
I'll leave it with you, Dana, because these I think these individuals would benefit greatly from support and an action plan type of thing, you know, how to move forward in a way that's holistic, understanding of the situation of the other person, but also focusing on themselves. You know, I mean, you and I come from a country where focusing on oneself is not necessarily the norm. We focus on the collective, we focus on the greater good, on, you know, for the, you know, the whole family, the entire family. So we find ourselves sometimes, you know, being the last to give attention to. So and it may be too late, right? So I'm genuinely wondering sometimes how many people are trapped that way, and it may be too late for them to even start a healing journey.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's a very, very complicated situation. I don't believe there is ever too late for anybody. I think in this is my thinking and my experience. Okay, so everything I'm sharing with the two of you is based on my experience and my work. It doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone or it will appeal to everyone.
We totally get that. You have total
Yeah.
ownership of how you want to
Yeah.
express yourself here. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want the listeners to know that, you know, they might hear something and they might be like, this is not going to work for me. True, it might not. This is why there are options that we work with and we ask and invite people to look into when we do counseling. But I don't believe there is a situation that is hopeless. There are many people, as Laura, you mentioned, that feel trapped. And that's a horrible feeling. Feel that there is no way out. I also believe that in the situation you described, Laura, this woman is not ready to separate, okay, for valid reasons for her. And again, we are not doing therapy on radio, and I don't have all the facts, and I usually have a billion questions I need to ask the person in order for me to even be able to formulate, you know, some observations. But where I'm going with this is many people are in the stage of pre-contemplation or contemplation. Okay, so before we engage into the process of change, which separation is a process of change, because pretty much everything changes from our relationship to the way we parent. We parent as a single, parent. With the way we manage our finances. And pretty much everything changes. Our relationship with the in-laws, there are a lot of changes, and there is a lot of loss that comes with separation. There are also many good things that come with that. But again, going back to the situation you were describing, when people feel trapped, they are functioning from an emotional level, and they are functioning with their emotional brain. And when we are functioning through an emotional brain, the rational brain, the problem solving, everything else is parked aside. We cannot think straight, we cannot see options, because all we think about it and all we feel is our pain and sorrow and sadness and despair, and and all of these emotions. And let me ask you this: when you feel sad, or if you feel that you are on the edge of despair, can you problem solve?
That's the question. Can you problem solve when you are in that kind of state?
Yeah.
I believe you can. It depends again on the individual and their history to that point, and how they're equipped or not equipped with the requisite types of skills and knowledge that can help them try to take ownership of the moment. Because many times when people are feeling trapped, they feel they have no options.
Yeah.
And I'm simplifying things here because, you know, many of the intimate relationships, people, separation, divorce, there's a whole dynamic of control, power and control, that people then give ownership, provide the space for another person to have ownership of their own decision making. And the decisions are made based on, well, if as a mediator, you had two people in front of you and you ask them, so what do you each want? And one responds with, well, whatever they want. Whatever they want. So that hasn't addressed or responded effectively, in my experience, to the question, because I'm asking, what do you each want? And when someone says the other, whatever they want, it's like giving up ownership of their own decision making, their own self-determination.
Yeah, but you prove my point. You cannot problem solve, because in that situation, what I see, Greg, is
I will say to you, I'll let you finish. I will say to you that, again, the two words, it depends.
No, it depends. But if you are in a situation where you sit in the room with somebody that has been abusive, and I'm using your example, okay, and you sit there in fear, I'm not going to think of what I want, because even if I want to do that, what I'm thinking is how the age I'm going to get out of here. I just need to get out of this room.
Yes, and the decision may not be happening at that time, in that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I say it depends,
and
it's on the individual, there's so many qualifiers or factors. So I believe, though, at some future point, there may be a probability or a higher probability for that to happen. There are other things that need to happen for this person to hopefully get to a better emotional state, to make their own conscious decisions, to have ownership of their decision making. It's more complicated, of course.
Yeah, no, it is very complicated, and you are right. Like, they need to leave the room to be able to, relax and be able to start thinking rationally. But my statement was about, in the moment, if I'm overcome by emotions, I will not be able to think straight or come up with a rational answer or problem solve or do anything else. I need to remove myself.
I would call it like, you give the space and place for people to reflect, process what just happened to what didn't happen, to then say, what can I do? And what do I actually want to do? So it's better connecting with your own lived experiences, for sure. Reflection is a powerful tool.
Yeah, but sometimes you are not able to reflect. And again, I'm going to take it further than that. It's like when I'm overcome by emotions, and I had many situations when people come to see me and they're like sitting in a chair, head down in a fetal position. This is overcome by emotions. And I try to talk to them. I mean, I know better now after 20 years. Talking is not doing it. So basically, and this is just an example, okay? It's about engaging the other part of the brain, which is like your motor skills. So basically what we do is like, okay, stand up, walk a tight line. Put papers on the floor and say, walk from 1 place to another and you have to skip. And then you see the person standing up straight and be like, okay, because we are able to move this person from their emotional brain into, okay, let's engage the other side of the brain. But in the moment, I'm not able to give you a rational answer. I'm like, okay, I'm so overcome by emotions. Let me be.
Yeah, and if a person as a facilitator or quote a counselor is self-aware, they're consciously connected to themselves in relation to the other person with whom they're asking these questions. And they have to be picking up on the active listening, the verbal cues, and the nonverbal cues. There has to be some kind of connection with, well, if you say it a certain way with your verbal, well, if your body language is communicating something distinct from that, that's a cue for, something's missing here.
Yeah. And this can be done with friends and family members. It doesn't, like, you just need to have the tools and teach them what to do when you are in a fetal position. And not try and have a conversation with you and say, snap out of that.
Even that might, they'll process that their own way too. And it may not be as to what we hope for, because people are going to process what they hear and what they're feeling in the moment their own way.
Precisely.
And I know that we moved a little bit from the guilt. I feel guilty not talking about guilt, because I know that Dana and I, after a program that we listened, we talked about guilt and we talked about forgiveness and we talked about acceptance. And we talked about, the person who's leaving the relationship, generally, sometimes what we hear anyways, is that they feel some form of guilt. For leaving, for splitting the family, for not trying hard enough, for not being there enough, for working too much outside of the home, and now the family has developed a different interest. So that guilt is, and we see it surfaces in the mediation in the way that they relate to certain things that you're saying, Greg. Well, whatever she wants, right? So sometimes it comes out that way, when we ask, what is the furniture, how do we divide it? Let her pick first, let her do first, because that guilt will come up. So we do also have to focus on, recognize and work and I find it a very difficult work with families who are together at the same time, and one feels very guilty and one doesn't. One feels different emotions. To deal with a person who has tremendous guilt. And I wanted to ask you, Dana, because I remember having a conversation about, forgiveness. And do we need to, do people need to forgive in order to move forward? And what is the forgiveness anyway? Like, can you forgive yourself in order to move forward? Is it about self-forgiveness, or can you forgive the other person for, I don't know, cheating, for being not the greatest whatever partner you've hoped? And does that need to happen in order to enter into a co-parenting healthy relationship? So when the romantic relationship is no longer there, does that need to happen to still have a good relationship with that person? I know it's a loaded question with a whole
Actually, we would call that stacking the questions. Yeah. Present one and then unpack the one and then build upon that.
Listen, I can handle this.
Good. You got your friendship, at risk here.
Nah. No, I can handle this. So one comment around guilt. In my definition, it's just a very, very simplified definition of guilt is about doing or not doing something. And Laura, your example, it's about that. Like, I feel guilty because I I did this to you. I decided to separate, or I feel guilty because I'm taking the kids away from their other parent. I'm not gonna choose genders. I don't do that. So guilt, or in my experience, people come to me about feeling guilty for not trying harder or doing something else or coming into counseling earlier. Because I can tell you, I see many couples that end up separating because it's too late, and it's the best option they have. At the time they enter counseling. And I think this is an important point for people to understand. We make choices at the time with the options we have at that particular time. So guilt, I call guilt a useless emotion, because what we do with guilt, we go back in the past and say, oh, I feel guilty about what I did 5 years ago. Okay, I hear you, but you cannot change that. The only thing you can change is what you do moving forward. So what is behind that? What makes you feel bad about that? Oh, it's, I don't want my kids to suffer. Okay, we are talking about something else right now, something that we can fix or find solutions for. So that's the guilt piece. The other question, and hopefully I can remember, was about forgiveness. Forgiveness is in my experience, and this is my personal opinion, is forgiveness is about yourself. Okay, I think it's important to work on forgiving yourself first, and then examine the possibility or the option of forgiving the other person. There are many situations when people cannot forgive because of the actual situation they've been a victim of. And I'm using the word victim very strategically. Do you need to forgive to move on? I will use your answer, Greg. Depends. Mm-hmm. What's behind the forgiveness? Like, what are you looking to accomplish? So my question would be why? Why do you need to forgive?
I would even project another question. Who are you looking to forgive? The other person or yourself?
Yeah.
And
no,
why?
I assume that was done first. Okay, like, who are you? Like, okay, it's about me. I need to forgive myself. Why?
My experience, though, is people tend to forgive another. When they say forgive, it's about forgiving another person, and they lack the sense of respecting themselves in some way, that they have the equal opportunity to empower themselves to forgive themselves for whatever reason. Yet people project, i.e. the concept of forgiveness, onto another person without validating or acknowledging even themselves. And that, to me, is a struggle where it gives me awareness where the emotional state of that person is and isn't.
Yes, I think in the process of recovering from a loss, any kind of loss, separation, going through separation, I think it's important to focus on yourself, because the ultimate result, so from the moment you separate to the ultimate result, which is, okay, I move on and I'm able to live my life, there are other things that need to happen, and forgiveness might be part of it or not.
So what's the connection? And this is an assumption by me making it this way. What's the connection of separation and divorce with loss and grief?
Well, I see like separation and divorce. For me, divorce is the last piece, and it's more like the legal, everything is in place. You know, we live in different homes right now. There is a custody agreement. This is just my very restrictive view for the purpose of this conversation right now, okay? I need to restrict that. So what's the separation? The process of separation is a process of loss for me. And in the process of loss or grief, there are multiple losses. Loss of, you know, your home, your dreams, because many of us get into a marriage or sign up for a marriage to be with that person and have dreams around that. We see ourselves growing old with that person. And anyway, each of us have our own dreams. Okay, so that's a loss. That dream will not become a reality. Okay, you lose relationships, you lose friends if you have common friends, and most couples do have joint friends. Sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, many times friends pick sides. So there are multiple losses. So with loss, you go through stages. And I'm just going to mention these stages so people understand. So you, again, I think I mentioned before, like if you are not prepared and this comes as a shock, it's like, okay, I'm having a conversation with my partner, oh, we want to separate. Oh, I didn't expect this. Well, I mean, when you look back, you will see warning signs, but at that moment, I'm in shock, or people can be in denial, or I might get very angry and I want revenge. Okay, that's another topic for another. And then you get to acceptance. And acceptance is, people think, okay, acceptance is about, agreeing with what happens. Acceptance has nothing to do with agreeing. Accepting means I accept that this is happening. Okay, this is happening. And it's happening right now. It's part of my journey. And I still can make changes. I still have control. Because control is another piece that should be discussed.
Well, you know, with what you talked about with acceptance, there's two other A words. One you said, acknowledgement, and then there's agreement. Mm-hmm. Are they all the same? I'm throwing that out there just as a teaser. I would suspect that you don't agree with that, for sure.
No, I don't.
I agree.
And now
you agree, so you accept what I say?
I agree that she doesn't agree with that.
Wow.
I accept and acknowledge that she doesn't agree with that.
I think we also have to accept that we all have different views and experiences. And we don't have to agree. We have to agree to disagree.
Well, it's about another A word, assumptions. We make assumptions that we're supposed to all agree.
Yeah.
And, you know, the power, as I've mentioned a couple of times, is that individuals have ownership. And when they can connect with their own ownership, their own capacity to identify and determine what they ideally want, and then move into an action plan to try to make that happen, that's when people are much more of accepting of the scenario of what they're ideally looking for as outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think we could have another conversation because I did create more questions, and I'd rather than us. Of
course you did.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you never know. We have to go with the flow and see what happens in the moment, as life is.
Exactly.
So I just want to put it out for anybody in the crowd. If you want to ask a question or present a comment, we welcome that. Any thought-provoking, stimulating pieces that have, push your buttons in some way?
One thing that, and of course, I please, yes, follow through with Greg's encouragement. But one thing that I'm thinking when we're talking about this is, and it's a rich topic. It's a very, very rich topic. We can dissect each emotion and how they play a role in the transition and in the individual journey and how they're impacted. But one thing that I see with forgiveness, and especially with forgiveness of self, is kindness, is just being kind to yourself, is remembering that you matter as well, and your well-being matters as well. So that forgiveness does come with other steps, like Dana had mentioned, with losses, that one loss comes with other losses. I think forgiveness also is about being reflecting and being kind and forgiving yourself and forgiving the maybe the choices that you have made with whatever tools you've had at that time, rather than beating yourself up, rather than allowing for the negative emotions to erode the present, the whom you are today, because you're no longer the person who you were yesterday or even 5 minutes ago. We grow and we change. Oftentimes, and when Donna was talking about her clients coming to her about contemplating or pre-contemplating separation, oftentimes we hear families or couples who feel very, very sad because they love their partner, but they're no longer in love with their partner, and they feel that they should feel guilty or ashamed or embarrassed, or they should try harder because the partner is such a great person. They've supported them throughout and they feel like they've not done enough. But we need to remember that kindness and forgiveness of self, because we grow, and we grow. Sometimes we don't grow together. So I mean, we are product of our day-to-day, moment-to-moment experiences, and we may not be growing in sync. And it takes a lot of work and communication to kind of grow in sync. But if you don't, you shouldn't beat yourself up for not, right? You shouldn't feel that you have to punish yourself for not continuing the relationship, which I find very tough for some, to get to that level of forgiveness and kindness to self. That's why I was referring when I was talking to you, Dana, about that concept of forgiveness last time, because I find that forgiving someone else is not necessarily about that someone or someone's actions. And it is very difficult, of course, when you think at the surface, to forgive someone who has done, bad stuff, horrible stuff. But it is about not allowing that experience to still reside with you, within your emotional core, not allowing that to drive you and to almost hijack your new experiences. And I know it sounds a bit cheesy when I read sometimes online, you're giving them free rent in your head or something like that. If you don't forgive the other person, you're still linked. There's still a link between you, and then you're carrying. You're pretty much chained to that experience. So forgiving of that other person has nothing to do, and I know that that's what we triggered our conversation last time, Dana, is that it has nothing to do with the other person. For me, I don't care what the other person does. I don't care if that person agrees or does, completely different stuff. It's about how that experience, how I choose that experience to impact me from this moment onwards. And I choose to forgive in order for me to cut the chain and start having different experiences.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I know probably Greg wants to end the show. today, and we can talk about this for a week. But you are right, Laura. Forgiveness benefits the person first. It benefits me first, okay, and most. What you talked about, referring to having the person in your head, it's, in my opinion, has no, I mean, it can be about forgiveness, but it doesn't have to be about forgiveness. It's about giving someone else control over yourself. And that can be dealt with in a different way. You can make the decision, from now on, I will not let this person continue to control my thoughts and my actions. I mean, my actions, it's not the case, because in separation or divorce, when people no longer live together, it's more the thoughts. It's the emotional control that lingers for months and sometimes years after separation or divorce.
I will say that people may not be aware that they're providing that other people control them.
Exactly.
So it's more about getting them to be aware and informed, connected, that this controlling nature of the relationship is happening, rather than they're controlling me. I don't believe that people really realize that for the most part. There are some people who do, and for someone who's external from that person, and as a professional like yourself, that's where you're skilled and knowledgeable to help be, being informed by what you see, what you don't see, with what's said and what's not said, how it's said and how it's not said, to then try to figure this out, ideally for what the person wants for themselves, not what you want for them. Because that, again, is another form of control and ownership of another person's decision making. It's like, what do you want to do ideally? If you had the full opportunity to do so, ideally, what would you like? I mean, that's a journey to get to for many people. And I think, I want to be respectful that we're at 9:15. And I really appreciate our conversation, Anna, Laura. And I know we could have more. And I believe we can have another one that continues to build upon this, because I did present, as I mentioned, other questions that would help unpack this. There's richness to these conversations from my experience. And
thank you.
Yeah,
I agree. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And I agree. I think we just scratched the surface, and so much more to explore.
Yeah. Laura,
I'm gonna come with case scenarios next time. I have quite a few examples that I would love to talk about, because I think they're very they'll tell a story about how these emotions play a role, and how they can be shifted in a way that it can be healthy for the next chapter.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great tool, a great opportunity as a case study in some form to, you'll explain this is what happened, and then to go more incrementally into that journey of that experience for those people, to bring to light more of the context and what didn't happen, etc., what could, as possibilities, of course, with ownership by the individuals. Yeah, those are prime examples, because I think when people hear the practical, those are practical experiences. It's not theoretical stuff. Those are, I believe, from cases that you've worked on. And like you, Dana, you've presented without disclosing any confidential identifying information. You've presented information from the people that you've been working with to help support. Those are the ones that really resonate, I think, for the most part, for people to really appreciate. I'll just put it out there one more time. Anybody want to make a comment or a question? So Dana, where are you at right now? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
No, I'm excited. I want to keep talking.
Yeah, enough with this open-ended questions, Greg.
Why? You know the intention of
That's
open-ended
still
questions.
open. If you're asking why, that's still open.
Well, the whole intention is to present it up to the person you're asking for them to fill in the blanks for themselves. It's not about me, and we're trying to talk about it's not about me. It's about us.
It's about us.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was great to scratch the surface on this, and I look forward actually to the next one.
Look who wants to get in the room at this time. Look at that. Did you see
I
her?
know, and until then, I want to say good night and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I think you know, whenever you want to ask any questions or feedback, we're always here. Greg is always here, and I'm kind of in the background if I'm not here, but and I can relay messages to Dana too if there's any follow-up stuff that comes up.
Yeah, a very rich conversation and very much appreciated, Dana.
Thank you, Dana,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. It was great to be with the two of you, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of when that would be, so we'll reach out together afterwards to see when is best for the three of us.
2021.
This is 2021.
Yeah,
Just try to, yeah.
I narrowed it down for you.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well,
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, and we'll see you again on the program for next week, and again with Dana and Laura sooner, for sure.
Looking forward. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.